Everyone. My name is Nida El-Relami, and I am the founder and curator of Peacelab. So, for today's episode on Peacelab, I'm going to be talking about reclaiming your inner energy. There's always a voice inside our head, and you can view it objectively. It doesn't matter what it's telling you. It could be spiritual, it could be profound, it could be mean, it could be true. Whatever it is, it's all the same. Your mind is constantly going to go. It's constantly going to make noise. It's constantly going to say, hey, those people thought you were this way. You should have called this person. Why didn't you do this? Oh my gosh, you should have been better. Oh my gosh, you know better than that. It's constantly going in your head talking to you. One of the misconceptions about mindfulness and meditation is that people think that practicing mindfulness or meditation means that you shut off the voice in your head. And people are so attached to this voice in their head. They're so attached to this voice in their head, and they also feel that it's impossible to escape. And they're right, because the voice in your head doesn't stop. It's always going to be there, and it's always going to be making noise. And mindfulness and meditation is just so you can start becoming more conscious and aware of when you are following the thoughts and when the thoughts are triggering emotions. And if you are following that energy of that emotion or following that thought, and then you spend like 2 days on the same anxiety or fear, irrational thought. So mindfulness and meditation are just to become more conscious and aware so you can drop the thought, you can drop the emotion in real time. And it's a practice. So it's never telling you that you will be forever healed of noise and thoughts in your head. That's impossible because we're human and we're constantly having thoughts. And the reason why we have thoughts, it's because of our evolution and who we are as humans. It's just a narrative in our brain. The real goal is to become an observer of the thought, an observer of how that has triggered an emotional response in your body, and if you are attached to that emotional response now, and how long you sit in that energy of charge. So, and you can practice this. You can watch objectively where you feel nervous, fearful, attracted to something, and how that energy builds inside of you, and how that activity in your brain starts to increase. The first part of reclaiming your energy is observing your thoughts and your energy, the charge of energy that's in you, like the emotional response to the thoughts. We carry energy in our body, and the words for this energy in our body, Chinese, they say it's the qi. It's also the shakti or the spirit. It's this moving energy that's inside of us, and it shapes our mental and emotional patterns, and it drives us, and it creates the impulse reaction, the reactivity, the urges, and any kind of those behaviors. But this energy in us is programmed to be in survival mode, and that's just because the survival energy is our most primal energy state. It's the like instincts that make us want to eat, procreate, sleep like animals. The human has all of those same instinctual primal urges, and so it's the energy is the driving force that pushes us to make sure that we eat, sleep, and procreate like animals. And there's a poem by Rumi, and I don't have it right now, but it's one of my favorite poems, and I talked about it in one of my old podcasts. But he says that the human being is between the animal and the angel, and he's God's favorite. The human being is God's favorite because the human being has the free will to worship like the angels who are already designed to worship. So we have a choice to be as the angel, and we're also half animal, and so we're in between. But he says in this poem by Rumi that the human being who acts below the animal is less than an animal, because there's something that human beings have that animals don't, and it's this consciousness and this awareness to withhold from being in this primal state of being, you know? We have more divinity than that, more consciousness where we can withhold desire and impulses. And so the goal of human beings is to get out of these lower chakras, this primal state of being that are about hunger, procreation, and sleeping, even though they're all part of us and we participate in all of these energies. But it's about, even though we have this primal instinct, we're able to transcend and use our consciousness to direct us, to lead us. That is the free will of the human being. And so that's why being a mixture of both, we're actually even better than the angels, because then the angels are, by design, they're perfect. They're light. How do you recognize when you are stuck in survival mentality and your energy is stuck in this primal energy? You recognize it by starting to be aware of this compulsive behavior and your reactivity. So, where are you using your compulsive behavior to self-soothe? Whether that's eating too quickly to escape an emotion, doom scrolling, watching television or YouTube to pass the time. None of these things are inherently bad in themselves, but if it becomes compulsive behavior or an act of escapism, we need to pause and take a step backwards to notice what is the root cause of us doing this. Why are we doing this? And it's not because we have an addictive personality. That even that addiction to do that stems from something deeper within us that we need to address, whether that's feelings of loneliness, insecurity, pain that we're not letting ourselves feel and process. And we'll talk about how we do that later in today's episode. But right now it's just I'm trying to explain how we are programmed to be in survival mode, how we have the primal instincts that are very animalistic, and how if we lose awareness and leave these primal instincts unchecked, how they show up in compulsive behavior, reactivity, addiction, and all of these other things because we are not focused on it. We're not aware of it. These behaviors are not bad in themselves. They signal where energy and emotions need release. So many of us don't lack food, water, clothing, or shelter, or any of these things. Yet, evolutionarily, we remain stuck in the survival mode, protecting ourselves psychologically instead of physiologically. And so when we have this survival energy in us and it's programmed to be in us, oftentimes when people are in a developed country and we are not actually experiencing violence externally, there's not like bears coming at us or dinosaurs or anything that's attacking us out there in the world, we turn this survival protection inward and we use it to protect our egos, our self-concepts, and emotional safety rather than using it against external threats because we don't have them anymore, you know? It's just something that we've adopted. The way that we can see psychological protection is how we close down with our community, our peers, in our relationships with our parents, our siblings, and we are just stuck in the mind and we're not letting these emotions be processed out. So, what happens when we are stuck in this survival protection mode and we're not allowing energy to move freely within us because we are so consumed with our anxieties and trying to protect ourselves and have control in our life? We're not actually letting this chi or this shakti, this spirit within us, move freely and be in flow and being in a flow state. And when this happens, we actually fragment our energy inside of us and it causes problems because when the energy is stuck or blocked in us and it stays there for a long time, this is how it manifests in autoimmune diseases or creates like problems with our joints, our weight. It's usually stuck unprocessed emotions. Doing things like running or sports to push the energy out is really good, or jumping up and down, or doing yoga because you're moving the energy that's stuck inside of you. That's why sometimes when people are stretching or they are doing a certain movement, they start to cry and release energy that's been blocked in the body because our body is so sensitive and it holds on to energy that we do not let out. And this can be problematic because it really fragments us as individuals. When we experience things like fear or anxiety or pain or hurt, even insecurity, like for example, when I was telling you the story about talking to Ava, my coach and business partner, when I was experiencing the insecurity out in the open and had to sit and be present with that emotion that was arising. The reason why it felt so vulnerable and raw to be witnessed that way and to feel that emotion, it's because every time in the past that I have felt that specific type of insecurity or vulnerability, I pushed it away. I either would probably have eaten something, I would have called a friend, I would have listened to music, I would have gone on a run. And none of these things are inherently bad. They're just ways that we self-soothe or try to snap out of that emotion. And what I'm learning now, and what this podcast about reclaiming your energy is really all about, is to honor that emotion when it comes up in real time, learn to observe it and pause in it, feel it. And as soon as you observe that energy and you experience it, and you watch your body do whatever it needs to do, whether it's that it freaks out, whether that it cries, whether it's shaking, just letting it process through you and leave you. It's honestly the secret about experiencing these types of emotions and this pain and this trauma that's been passed down intergenerationally or from our childhood, is to experience the emotion and let it leave your body instead of pushing it back down or pushing it aside until later, or pushing it aside until later to intellectualize what it was, rather than letting it leave you without thinking about it. And this is something that I'm working through as well. And so reclaiming your energy is reclaiming that vital energy force that's within us, that's supposed to be flowing in motion like water, and allowing anything that comes through you, pain, anger, annoyance, any trigger, to come through you and just leave, and just to witness it. Because in witnessing it and allowing it to move through you, you're actually clearing yourself from the block in real time. There's ways that we practice to restore this flow of energy within us. We restore our flow and our chi through creative acts. When we are in service, when we run, when we sing, when we dance, drawing, all of these ways allow us to connect back into our body and outside of the mind. And they're all so important, all of these different ways that we tap into that flow state. Another element to this, so we're allowing unprocessed emotions to leave us and to transcend into a different nervous system and spiritual body, is to allow these emotions to arise sometimes, and pausing in it and allowing it to be expressed before you go on the run to let go of tension even more, or before you start singing, or before you listen to music, or before you call that friend. If you are sitting there and you're scrolling on social media and all of a sudden you feel insecure, or you feel all this anger come in you, take a breath, because you're feeling anger or you're feeling insecurity, and just pause. Take 3 breaths. And ask yourself, or just say, I'm angry right now, or I'm insecure right now because I just saw that post. And watch that energy charge leave you. And that's what we're learning here, is that few seconds of pausing and mindfulness, when the energy starts to flow or the thought starts to create the emotional response in the body, that you pause and you watch it and you let it go and you observe it. Because that energetic charge is going to keep coming up until you address it, until you let it be seen and heard. It's a basic need of yours that we as humans have always needed to be seen in our emotional state and our needs. If you are not even able to sit with yourself and be present with those emotions that arise, you are not taking care of yourself, and your body's going to reject you in some physical ailment or spiritual ailment later down the line. So it's really important that you allow yourself to process these emotions, even if you don't feel proud about them. You feel shame around it. But there's no shame. Shame around your own desires and your own needs and your own emotional responses has been programmed in you. To really be free as a spirit, as a human being, is to be opening to your psyche, to allow your psyche to show itself to you. You have to notice when you're closed off. You have to start noticing when you're scared or you're insecure, and the parts of you that are wanting to hide behind these walls and protect itself. because if you keep on doing that and you add all of these protection mechanisms outside of you, you avoid those types of people, you avoid that type of environment, you don't talk to your family members, you do all of these things to protect you, you're living in so much control and restraint, and you think you're free, but it's actually just an entrapment of your psyche and your spontaneity as a human being. And we think that we're safe. And we do all these things to protect ourselves, like having a very structured routine, making sure that we always get the same workout, and making sure that we eat super healthy, and we go on these long trips, and we go to different countries, and all these things that are part of the life experience and so beautiful. But you have to start understanding where you're running away from your own psyche, and how a lot of it might be control or self-preservation, because you are so afraid to address that hurt and pain, and you're so afraid to be hurt by other people, and are walking around with this insecure, deep shadow that needs to be healed. There's a couple of parts to reclaiming that energy of yours. Is one, start to develop a awareness and become more mindful of the thoughts and the emotions that are passing by in you. So develop that awareness, start observing them, don't shame them. Two, as you observe those thoughts and emotions that arise in you, open up the psyche to allow them to process through you. And it takes a few seconds to do this by just pausing and letting that emotion leave your body, letting it show you something, and not holding on to it, letting go of it. And three, just practicing that constantly and understanding that it's part of our lived experiences as humans. And that's the real spiritual work. The real spiritual work is witnessing the fragment parts of you. This means turning your attention inward to notice all of the pieces of yourself that you usually hide or ignore. It's about recognizing the parts that feel insecure, fearful, or vulnerable. These are the aspects of you that protect themselves by putting on this mask, that protect themselves by running away when the relationship gets hard, or leaving the work environment before you address what is the root cause of your discomfort and your anxiety. It's the mask of presenting yourself as strong, independent, confident so you don't get hurt, but it's on fragile grounds. It's not rooted in who you are because you are ignoring the parts of you that want to heal. And you are strong, you are independent, you are capable of so much. But by ignoring those parts of you that come up in real time, those moments of being triggered, the moments of feeling fear or vulnerability or anxiety, by ignoring them, you're not allowing yourself to grow and to transcend into an even more strong and independent person. So the real spiritual work and personal development, soul transformation, whatever you want to call it, starts when you start allowing these shadow and hidden parts of yourself to be seen and acknowledged without your judgment. A lot of times my intellectualization of my emotions meant that I never just told someone, I'm mad at you, I'm angry at you, because I was so hyper aware and sensitive about how that anger or being mad actually was probably a me problem. I was policing my emotions way too much. Does that make sense? Like I would go home and be like, I'm mad at them because of something that happened when I was 7 years old, or because I'm insecure about this moment. And I would always take so much self-accountability that I wouldn't even allow myself for those emotions to be seen and witnessed in real time. And that intellectualization kept me trapped, because it didn't allow me to feel my emotions in real time and to heal them and to let them pass. And that's the actual spiritual growth. That's how I actually was supposed to transcend. And it wasn't until the structures of control and protection fell apart and I was witnessed in the moment of weakness, my perceived weakness in a relationship, or even through work or in a coaching session, and I'm not able to hide, and the control mechanisms are falling apart because they always do. And I had that moment of release. Was I able to see all of the places that I had created this structure of protection in my life? And so going back to witnessing the fragment parts of yourself, the parts of you that are hurt, are fearful, to be taken advantage of, to be seen as weak. Spiritual growth starts when you allow those hidden parts to come up and be seen and acknowledged without your judgment. And by doing this, you give those fragmented parts of you the space to move outside of you and to be released. And you allow your body to reintegrate with the flow and the chi within you. Instead of locking these stuck emotions inside of you, you're able to process them outside of you and you let them go. And once you allow those really painful emotions to leave you and come up, you actually develop more clarity and strength because you realize that they don't hold you back, that they're not there to hold you back. They just want to be seen, acknowledged, and they want to be let go. But you contracting and holding it in and feeling that tightness in your chest and going quickly to distract yourself to something else so you don't feel that emotion because it's so powerful and it's so painful, you're actually burying it deeper inside of you and it's manifesting into these physical ailments and this physical pain, and it's keeping your growth from coming through to you physically or emotionally. And we don't want that stuff inside of us. We want to acknowledge that it's very human to feel fear, anxiety, insecurity, and weakness, even. But you have to let it process outside of you. And you have to acknowledge that that is part of the human being. So we should let it go past us. And pain is a beautiful process. Pressure is a beautiful process because it's always allowing us to change and grow. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to change and grow. We're not here to keep stuck or stay small. We're here to transcend. And I'll give you an example of this. In one of my past relationships, my most recent one, I think I carried a mask of always being strong and super independent. And it was really hard for me to be emotionally vulnerable. Like I could, like I said, talk about intellectualizing my emotions, but to be seen as vulnerable in the emotion and let the person see me for pain, that vulnerability, that longing, that desire to be safe, to be seen, to be accepted for who I was. I didn't want that to be seen. I wanted to be the carefree, self-sufficient person that I'm fine, whether they stay or they go, whether they see me or they don't. And it was actually masking this more terrified, hurt self that maybe came from intergenerational trauma or maybe came when I was a child. I don't know, but it's there and it's real and it exists. It's an emotion of fearing to be misused or rejected or hurt. I unknowingly protected myself by being hyper independent and focusing on career my whole life and, doing certain things where I didn't have to face that insecurity inside of me. But it wasn't until I was forced to let my guard down and all that stored trauma that was in my heart pushed itself out and had to be seen. It's so crazy because even if you won't go there, the universe will push you into a challenging situation or a rock bottom moment to push you to grow and to release that stuck trauma that you're not even aware of. Because sometimes we're operating so much in this protection mode that we're unable to see our unprocessed trauma and pain that hasn't left our body. But we wonder why our physical world hasn't manifested, why I haven't created more intimacy in my life, why I haven't found the love of my life, why I haven't found that job that fulfills my soul. Why? We wonder. And we don't even realize that the emotions that are stuck in us, that are keeping us small and shutting away opportunities outside, all stems from us holding on to emotional and energetic pain and trauma that we haven't learned to let go. Because in those protection mechanisms, we're keeping ourselves small. Maybe you're not talking to that person because you're feeling insecure, and that person's actually going to change the trajectory of your life and your career. Maybe you have identified with the identity that maybe you believe that you're not able to pitch your idea and get investors because you don't have that experience, and that's coming from this insecure part of you that doesn't feel good enough, that feels like you need somebody else could do it but you can't. This is all unprocessed emotion and trauma in you that's dictating how you show up in the world and show up in your relationships and your life. And so it's all connected. And it's not that we want the outside world to change. You have to change your inner world for your outside world to reflect it. If you allow yourself to feel the insecure parts of yourself that are not allowing you to pitch your idea to get the investor or allowing you to step on stage and start doing public speaking, if you address that insecure part of you let it flow out of you, face that fear by just pausing and acknowledging it and saying, I feel fear, I feel scared, I'm insecure right now, and feeling whatever body feelings or signals it's showing you. And then you can step on the other side and go through it and change the trajectory of your life. So everything is stored in the body. And this is part of the inner peace process that I'm in the middle of learning right now is somatic healing. It's the energetic healing of the body. I'm getting out of the mind and back into my body, understanding where the emotions are still in me, where I need to cry and shake and scream and let it out. Like, how do I get rid of this trauma or this conditioning that is in me? You know, they talk about intergenerational trauma and how it's passed down through genetics and in our DNA. And I'm half Afghan and half Moroccan. And whether you think about colonialization in Morocco or you think about the war in Afghanistan, I didn't grow up there, but my family is Persian and they're Afghan and they all speak Farsi. And I grew up hearing it and hearing the stories and feeling the trauma from them. And it's in me, you know, this anxiety, this fear, it comes up and I don't have the knowledge sometimes to decode it mentally, but physically it lives in me because it's been passed down. And it's my job to honor what comes up, what wants to leave my body. You know, I could have fear from taking on a project or fear about getting on this podcast or fear about building something in Peacelab, and I don't know where this anxiety or this fear is coming from, but it could be passed down. And it's not really up to me to try to understand it intellectually. I'm here to let it leave my body so I can become more in tune and more conscious of these narratives and this programming that are running my life and allow myself to let it go physically. And I can do that by movement. I can do this by creative outlets. Also, a huge part of it is just pausing and having awareness about it and seeing it and not judging myself for feeling these things. If you are stuck in old emotional and mental spirals and conditioning, your body is constantly giving you signals, whether that's from a trigger or an annoyance here or there, this hypersensitivity and like worrying about what people think about you, worrying about how you spoke at the meeting. All these things are just a byproduct of this deeper rooted pain that you need to address and to see. And so use your triggers that are repeating themselves. The reason why you're still attracting the same person romantically, the reason why you're always in a dynamic at work where you feel disempowered. Like understanding where those triggers are keeping repeating themselves because it's signaling to you the deeper rooted problem that you need to address. So, okay, now we become aware and we become more conscious about the emotions and the thoughts that we are attaching to and that take us into a downward spiral, or that are part of the patterning of how we live our lives. Okay, and now what? What do we do? How do we change our mindset? It's really by letting go of the shame and the judgment for the emotions that come up. And how do you do that? It's always remember that you're the observer of the thoughts, of the emotions. And your soul and your body, yourself, all it's here to do is to let life be experienced and felt. But do not be taken with the current. Let it move through you. And you change your mindset by not judging yourself and believing in that thought or that emotion as your truth and your reality. And you do that by understanding you're the observer. Because life is putting us in challenging situations. It's forcing us to grow. It's forcing us to let go of this stored trauma and stored emotions that are blocking our chi, our spirit, our Shakti. Because God and the universe and life wants to push us forward. It wants us to evolve. It wants us to become our highest self. The universe is all about rebalancing itself. If you are taking energy, if you are trying to control, you will always fail because everything has a structure and a balance in this universe. There's always a north and there's always a south pole. It's how the universe stays balanced. And if you're the one that's trying to control the energy, it's not going to work. And people who are not letting go of their emotions or trying to control so much about their environment are the ones that are dealing with the most pain and suffering because they're not letting life just happen to them and just flow. When a challenging situation happens to you, as much as you can, see it as a moment for growth and for you to learn a lesson. Think about it in the highest light. You just got fired. You just lost a shit ton of money. The love of your life just broke up with you. You just got in an argument with your siblings and you guys haven't talked in a month. Everything that happens to you is for your highest good. Everything that happens to you is for you to change and to grow and get out of stuckness and to learn something about yourself. We are all here to evolve. It's the truth whether you believe in God or have a religious practice or spiritual practice or not. You can say that every single time that you're faced with a challenge, you can always look back and be like, thank God for that challenge. Thank God that I got fired because then I wouldn't have started this. Thank God that this happened to me or because I wouldn't have done this. You have to start recognizing this pattern and realize that the moments that you are angry, that things are not changing for you, the moments that you're just feeling helpless, like, why don't you have the answers? Why don't you have a solution? There's a reason why you're still in that waiting period because there's something that needs to be addressed. There's something in you that needs to be let go of. For a long time, I was trying to get a job in peace building. I was trying to find a job in development because I studied for 7 years international relations, political science, and then peace building. Went to grad school. It's very expensive for all of this study, and I didn't have a job in the space. And I'm so thankful. It's the biggest blessing of my life to have not had a peace building job right after. Because one, I don't think I would have had the nervous system to go work in conflict zones. Two, I don't think I was meant to go work in the conflict zone because that had been the history of my ancestors in Afghanistan. And I have a privilege of growing up in the US for a reason. There's something else I'm supposed to do with my life. And three, the whole journey of trying to figure it out in the in-betweens led me to my spiritual growth, my entrepreneurship, learning things like blockchain, about tech, having these crazy experiences, evolving so much past the traditional peace building bureaucratic route that would have led me to probably the UN or something, which nothing's wrong with it. I just have a unique journey for myself. If I hadn't gone through all of this and had learned along the way, and I thought, the whole lesson was about career, but in actuality, everything that I was trying to manifest in career was showing up in my relationship with my sister, was showing up in my love life, was showing up with my parents, was showing up in money, all of these different things that I was learning these lessons through triggers and challenges, and all of this got me to the point where I was like, okay, I'm gonna make my own thing. It's called Peacelab. And so when you look at your whole life, you think about the darkest nights of the soul. The darkest nights of the soul were the best things that ever happened to you. And so I'm saying all of this because it feels like those moments of looking at your emotions and your pain, you will never get through it. And we push it away so deep inside of us because we don't want to face ourselves. We don't want to see that part of ourselves that we've been avoiding. We don't want anyone else to see those parts of ourselves. When we acknowledge those shadow, insecure, deep parts of ourselves, and we let those feelings be felt, even if it's shame. Oh my God, how many times have I sat in the energy of immense shame and just let myself feel it? Shame for saying something, for doing something, and just not allowing it to control me anymore by just letting it process through me. Because the next day after I did that, it was so cathartic that I was a different person. It left my body. And that's what we do. That's what we're here to do every single day. I mean, obviously, you don't have to have the most traumatic release every single day, but the awareness and the allowance of what comes up mentally and what comes up physically to come to you and leave you, and you observe it and you let it go and you watch it from a distance and you feel it and you don't let it stay for tea. There's another Rumi poem. He says, the sadness, the grief, the depression, the fear that comes up, invite it for tea, but don't let it stay. It does not live with you. Allow it to come up. Allow it to be felt somatically in the body. So witnessing and releasing the stuck emotions. How do you develop the awareness to not have these stuck emotions and your mental patterning control you or fragment your energy? In other words, how do you stay centered in this body when all of this is happening internally inside of you? You first develop this awareness by letting go and letting the psyche show itself, letting the psyche be seen and witnessed. And every time you are become aware of this energy that has become separated inside of you, which just means that you feel a shift in your energy, you feel a charge. You go, I was happy and chill, and then all of a sudden I feel anxious. I don't know why I just felt anxious. Oh yeah, it's probably because I just saw this on social media. Or I just got a really aggressive email from my boss. Or this person just cut me off on the highway and that really annoyed me. And you pause. You give yourself 3 seconds. You go, "Whoa." That anxiety just came from the fact that there was a screaming homeless person on the street that just walked past me. Well, pause. I don't have to carry that anymore today. Because if you don't allow yourself to pause and notice it, the emotion, and let it come out of you, then you're going to be carrying that energy for the rest of the day. And it's just going to manifest in everything else that you do for the rest of the day. We're going to think about it all day. We're going to tell your friends about it, and you're going to be like, oh my God, my day's ruined because of that. So observe and let it go. So anytime that you feel the fragmentation of energy, you're angry, annoyed, sad, the fragment parts of you that are asking you to witness it and feel it through the body, not to intellectualize it, but to feel it through the body. Literally let the emotion leave you. Emote, move through it. And let your psyche pass through. Back to the relationship example. For so many years, I was protecting my ego. And it wasn't until I met someone who triggered all of the dormant pain and trauma that I had stored within my heart that I was able to fully experience the trauma from my past experiences. Because I was triggered so bad that it took me back to when I was in my early 20s. And it was not about the person that triggered me. It was actually because I didn't have the nervous system to address the pain that I had experienced in my early 20s. So it was actually the biggest blessing of my life to be able to process and release something that I had in me the whole time that was just dormant. And it didn't come out because I wasn't ready for it. And I had been protecting myself and avoiding certain situations and certain people until my nervous system felt safe for it to finally release itself and to be processed. And when it happened, it was the most cathartic moment of my life. It was so beautiful. And same thing, I felt emotionally raw and vulnerable. But after that happened, I was thinking, how beautiful is the body? How beautiful is this life experience? Because my body was waiting for the moment to feel safe to release, and it finally did it. And I felt so empowered because I was like, I will never face this same situation again. Because even though the pain was so intense, the fact that I could sit with myself and remind myself I was not this pain, that it just had to leave me, I will never replace that because I finally became free on the other side of that. Now I won't live my life creating the same dynamics anymore, feeling like I had to protect myself anymore. I can move past it. And so that's the beauty of the body, because we don't want to walk around closed off to life and the spontaneity of life and people and experiences because of this protection. You have to keep understanding, where I'm closing off my energy. Is it because I'm being defensive? Where am I trying to protect myself from being vulnerable or weak? Because what's going to happen is that everywhere you go, people are going to be disturbing your peace. People are going to be triggering you and bothering you. And you can't live life not close to people and not having a relationship with people. We're social beings. We have to be with people. And so instead of like blaming other people and just going into this, it's because they said this and that's why I feel this way and all these things, and getting defensive, or when somebody triggers you, you start to get bigger and bigger with your ego, and just realizing where this tightness is coming from, where you're being defensive, because that's where you're resisting change. That's where you are actually protecting this insecure small side of you inside. Another example of emotion that comes up is jealousy or envy. When you see someone and you desire what they have, and it starts making you feel badly about yourself, and you start thinking about like, oh, I wish I had more of these experiences, or it's because of my life situation that I can't do this. You're holding on. There's this tightness and there's defensiveness in you, and you're experiencing lack. And jealousy, it's actually a blessing because it's showing you where your soul wants you to go, how it wants you to evolve. It's showing you the lack in you that you need to actually transcend to be in the energetic state and the body to hold the thing that you're desiring. So it's actually a cue to show you where you're at energetically and where you could be to get everything that you desire. And you won't notice this jealousy is doing that, or it's actually a signal to you, until you allow it to come up, observe it, and go, I'm not this though, and I want to be above this. Thank you for this jealousy, for showing me what my heart desires. You don't have to follow the emotional charge of the jealousy, of the defensiveness, of being triggered. Because each time you ride that emotional charge, you're taking yourself from a fragmented state. You're making yourself more fragmented. You're taking yourself away from the wholeness of being present and aligned and in oneness in your body. And that's the flow state we want to be in. That's connection to God. God is just oneness. It's being connected to everything that's around us and not getting stuck in the scatteredness of the ego. You want to be centered. You don't want your energy to be fragmented and worrying about this and worrying about that and stressed about this. That takes you away from God. God is just oneness. It's coming back to being centered. That's why all the spiritual teachings, all of the sages, prophets, they talk about this connection to the divine and God. It's just literally being attuned with nature, to not be attached to the ego, the mind, and your emotions, to allow it to pass through you like a rock would go through water, observing it, but not being carried with it. Because water doesn't get carried with it. It lets it pass. So what should you do to stay centered again? You start to feel jealousy, anger, insecurity creeping in, and the feeling brings tightness in your chest. It makes you want to run. It pushes you to get defensive and fight back. And so when you feed this emotion with more attention and energy, it pulls you further off center. And the more that you focus on it, the more that you follow it, the more that you spiral in it, you're losing your power. And we want freedom. We want to evolve. We don't want these things to own us. We want to observe them without judgment or shame, but we want to let them go. And we don't want to be off balance. And that's the spiritual work. That's what all the sages and the prophets, this is what they're doing. They're working every single day to detox their body from this ego. And it's not bad. It's there to protect us. But we're here to reconnect to the divine, to oneness, to transcend our mental dialogue, to transcend our blocked emotions, and to become more conscious and aware and present. And you see this with really wise people. They're always centered. Challenges come up, struggles come up, and they don't let it take them away. They don't let it ruin their cool. It doesn't mean that they're void of emotion and they don't feel fear or anxiety or pain. They just let it come in and leave their body. And any tightness they feel, they let it go and they let it be felt. And I always bring this up too because I think it's really interesting. When you think about really wise people or the sages or the prophets, someone like Jesus or Buddha, something that they always have in common and what it's almost like a prerequisite to be an enlightened person like this is the humility that they carry. And a humble person to me is able to know their humanness and have compassion for the emotions that arise in them and don't try to run away from the fear and anxiety or the insecurity that come up, because they never say that they're better than these emotions. They acknowledge their humanness and their quote unquote weakness, or their vulnerability rather. And they still ask for the creator, for God, for the universe's power to help them get through it. And they're not even above asking for that support of nature, of the universe, of God, to help them move through the emotions or the challenge. And they always give thanks for what they're offered and the provisions that they receive. They never have an ego that says, I'm the reason why this happens. So the strongest sages, the strongest prophets, even the men, the reasons why they're true leaders is because they practice this humility and they express this emotion and allow themselves to grieve and to surrender and to ask for healing, love, and support and strength to keep on going. And they recognize that they're part of this bigger power, this bigger energy, and they're connected to everybody else. They hold humility. They can connect to the community. They don't think that they're better than homeless people or prostitutes or the poor. And you know they're humble because they allow humanness to occur. And so nothing in that tells you to judge your own emotions. We look at these people for stories and understanding of what it is to be the most spiritual and divine and connected human being you can. And the reason why these stories and this learning has stuck with people for generations is because there's truth in this type of individual. It's a symbol of how we should act. So honor what comes up for you, allow it to move through you, and understand that by doing so, you're actually creating more freedom in your body to evolve and to be more connected to the earth, to people, and relationships. Practice this humility that I'm not going to let this fear, this pain, this insecurity define me, because we all feel insecure. We all feel pain. We all are scared and afraid. It doesn't have to run our lives, but when it comes up, have grace for yourself and compassion and let it process through you, because that's transcendence. That's how you evolve into a different person. So thank you for tuning in to this episode about reclaiming your energy. This is a process and there's so many topics and we can get into, but I hope it's very clear that we always have the power to reclaim our energy back to us. These thoughts that take us away from our center, these emotions that take us away from our center, we always have the free will to come back to ourselves, to come back to being centered and in the present moment and being mindful. We develop that awareness, we develop that consciousness, and it's a practice every single day. And there will be times when you feel so emotionally charged where you lose yourself for the day, or you feel a lot of fear and it sits with you for a whole week. Be gracious to yourself, because we're not here to be perfect. We're just here to develop this awareness and keep practicing it. Mindfulness and meditation and developing consciousness and this awareness takes practice. Every single time you experience yourself going through a spiral, whether if it's 10 seconds or 10 minutes or 10 hours, you always have the ability to snap back, take a couple of breaths, and say, okay, I'm uncentered right now. I'm experiencing anxiety. Why is that happening? Just talk to yourself, no judgment, and just go back to being present. Because as soon as you start to observe where that emotion was starting to take you, or that thought was starting to take you, you develop your freedom. And that's how you reclaim your energy. It always comes down to being present and having more presence, because we want to be people who are grounded and who are centered. The people who have scattered minds, things are always falling apart. And there's no judgment in this, because I'm like this a lot. That's why I practice inner peace. That's why I meditate. That's why I make my spiritual health a priority as much as I make my physical health, going to the gym, working out, eating healthy. My spiritual health is also a priority. My mental health is a priority. And it's not for 30 minutes in the day. It's not for an hour. When you start developing this process of awareness and consciousness throughout the day, you make your spiritual and mental health your priority all day long. You leave the gym for an hour. You even leave a creative project for an hour or two, or maybe on the weekends because you're working. But your consciousness and your spiritual health can be done all day long through constant awareness and tapping back into the present moment. And for those of you who believe you'll never figure out a solution for this because your mind is constantly going and it's constantly talking, it's a practice, because I'm like this as well. And what always gets me outside of the mind and back into the body is pausing and breathing. Sometimes we go all day long without breathing. And then say what you feel. What does it feel like? You let it go. You observe and you let it go. So thank you so much for listening and tuning into this podcast. Let me know if you want me to talk about other topics or other books that you have read recently. I love doing this. It makes me so happy. And there's so many different topics that I want to get into. Peacelab is all about sharing the wisdom and the insights that we have gathered through our own personal life journeys, and just being a part of a community. And from that place of developing the spiritual and mindful health and taking care of these beautiful temples, this beautiful temple that is our body, that we are able to show up for other people. Sometimes all people are asking from us is presence, not for us to take their energy, not for us to tell them what to do. Sometimes they just want us to witness them and to see them in their emotional state, not coming in to fix it out of our own ego, not coming in to provide a solution out of our own taking to feel validated. We really need to start recognizing the times where we're taking from opportunities, taking from people's energy, taking from circumstances to validate us, to make us feel safe, to make us feel good about ourselves. We should never be in the taking energy. People will always go away from that energy. Opportunities will always be pushed away from that energy if you're taking desperately for it. It's an energy, you can feel it. You should be in the receiving mode. People should be coming to you and giving to you because you are able to receive, and you should be able to create and give back. Giving is not taking. Receiving is not taking. Take a few seconds, a few minutes to sit with those energies and to feel the difference energetically in your body of what giving and receiving versus taking feels like. Okay. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.